Hello guys, today I will be solving the following question. The question requires us to find f of x given that f of x minus 3 divided by x plus 1 plus f of x plus 3 divided by 1 minus x is equal to 1 divided by x. To make it easy to follow, I have broken down the solution into a series of steps, and to solve this question I'll be walking us through those steps. Yeah, so this is the first step required, and the step says you should rewrite in general form. So instead of having it in the form that was given to us, which is up here, let me underline, which is up here, equation 1, I wrote it in the form f of g of x down here, f of g of x, equation 2, plus f of h of x equal to v of x. Now, all we would be doing in this step is comparing. So if I compare equation 1 and 2, I can see that my g of x is equal to x minus 3 divided by x plus 1, as written down here. My h of x, let's see, my h of x from equation 2 is equivalent to x plus 3 divided by 1 minus x, as written here. And finally, my v of x is 1 divided by x, which is just the right hand side. The next step requires us to replace g of x with a different variable. In this case, I chose w. You can choose any variable you want to use. I just need a variable. You just need to use a variable other than x, right? So I said, it says substitute or replace g of x with w and express the equation 1, that's the original equation given, in terms of w. So if you go back up here, you will see that my g of x is what is going to be replaced with w. So I'm simply replacing x minus 3 divided by x plus 1 with w, and that's what is written here. Let me underline. So look at it here. So I'm just doing the first thing the instruction or the steps requires us to do, right? So w should be replaced, x minus 3 divided by x plus 1 should be replaced with w. It also says we should express the whole of equation 1, the whole of equation 1 with variable w rather than x. So what that means is that we're going to be solving for x and substituting back into equation 1. So from here, let me just call it a. So from a, we find x, and when we find x, we are going to substitute it into the other parts of equation 1. The other parts of equation 1 are h of x and v of x. Remember, g of x has been replaced with w already. So we just need to find the equivalence of h of x in terms of w and v of x in terms of w. So let's see. So we solved this. So essentially how I got this is to take the above equation a, w equal to x minus 3 divided by x plus 1, and I just cross multiply, right? If you cross multiply, you are going to have what? W into x plus 1 is equal to x minus 3, right? So I can expand this. I'll have wx, right, plus w is equal to x minus 3. So I can collect all the x terms. So I'm going to subtract wx here and subtract it from both sides. If I do that, it will cancel out here, right? And I'll have just w on this side. So we have x minus 3 minus wx. Now I'm trying to take every term without x, or every term with x to one side and every term without x to the other side. So I'm going to add plus 3 to this side, plus 3 to this side. And this will give me, let me just use it, this will give me w plus 3 is equal to x minus wx. Can you see that? Now, what that means is that if I factor x out, I'll have w plus 3 is equal to x into 1 minus w. So now I can divide both sides by 1 minus w, 1 minus w, and that's how this was gotten. So having gotten the value of x from that substitution, you put it into h of x to get h in terms of w. And so you see, if you go back up here, h of x is x plus 3 divided by 1 minus x. So you see, instead of x, let me underline it, instead of x here, I put the equivalent of x in terms of w, and then instead of x here, I did the same thing and I simplified to get the final value for h of w. The same thing, remember that v of x is equal to 1 divided by x. So instead of this x, I just substitute x from here, right? I substitute it here. As you can see, this is x, and then I simplify by just flipping it. So now I have been able to find h of w and v of w. Now everything with equation 1 is now in terms of w. So what do I need to do in this step? Final step for final task in this step, we just substitute w. Remember, let me just, this is g of x, remember, and this is replacing h of x, and this is replacing v of x in the original equation. So when we do this substitution, we end up with this equation 4, and that's it for the second step in the solution. Now we will do something similar. Remember, just have at the back of your mind, this substitution was done on g of x. Right? The next step, we did the same substitution, but now on h of x. So we find, we substitute w for h of x, and then find g of x and v of x in terms of w. Same procedure, but the substitution is on the other function, inner function. So you see, so we have w equal to h of x, and then similar way we solve for x. So I can still do that here. So I took this equation, cross multiply, so I'll have w into 1 minus x is equal to x plus 3, right? Expand this and collect like terms. When you expand, and I'll skip, so when I collect like terms, I can take this to the other side, any term with x to the right hand side and terms without x to the left hand side. So I'll have w minus 3, because 3 doesn't have x, it goes to the left hand side, and minus wx has x, it goes to the right hand side, and it becomes positive, right? So I just factored it in one step. Now I can divide both sides with 1 divided by w, 1 plus w rather, and this is how I got my new x with this new substitution. It's a different substitution. Remember, the initial substitution was w equal to g of x. The second substitution is w equal to h of x. You have to do those two before you can, eliminate what you want to eliminate to get f of x. So having gotten x in terms of w for our new substitution, we now find g of x, because remember h of x is w. We now find g of x in terms of w, which was done here, and then we find v of x in terms of w again, and then we substitute. Okay, here it's a mistake, this is g of w, because w is h of x, actually h of x, h of w, so w represents h of w, w represents h of w or h of x, and g of w is represented here. So this is just a typo, and then v of w. So as you can see, g of w is this. H of w is, or h of x is just simply w, and then v of w is this, v of w. So now we have two equations. Equation 4, if I go back here, we have f of w plus f of w minus 3 divided by 1 plus w equal to 1 minus w divided by w plus 3. And then we have equation 6, sort of similar but different, is f of w plus 3 divided by 1 minus w plus f of w is equal to 1 plus w divided by w minus 3. Now we need to solve those two equations. That will be step 4, right? Solve for f of x by solving equation 4 and 6 simultaneously. So you see, I just brought these equations together, and I will label them. This is 4, I believe, and yeah, and this is 6. So I simply, because I see that I have f of w here, f of w here, and I don't want them to cancel. If I subtract, f of w will cancel f of w. I don't want that to happen. So the only way to do it that makes the most sense is to add. So if I add these two equations, this and this will add to give me 2f of w, and this terms will remain. Can you see? This term here is here. Let me use a different color, hopefully, so it's clearer. So this term, look at it here, and then finally I have this term is here. So the right hand side of both equations, or sorry, the left hand side of both equations added together, and the right hand side of the two equations also added together to get equation 7. Now all we need to now check is, how do we simplify this? And the key is looking at how the equations look like. And I'm going to circle something. Let me use a different color. Let's put this in a box. Now go back to your original equation, which is equation 1. Sorry, I want to make it more perfect, right? So this portion of the left hand side, we have f of w minus 3 divided by 1 plus w plus f of w plus 3 divided by 1 minus w. Just let me quickly go back to the original question, and maybe you will notice what I'm noticing. Look at the original question. The left hand side is exactly the same as the boxed portion. It's just the difference is just the variable choice. The variable here is x, the variable in the other equation is w. So where are we? Okay, so I can say from equation 1, can you see, by comparing with equation 1, this portion that I boxed is the same as the left hand side of equation 1. So that means these two will add up to give the right hand side of equation 1, except with a change in variable w instead of x. So all that can be replaced with 1 divided by w, and that's what we did here. That's what we did here. And then I can now solve for f of w by moving all the terms to the other side. So 1 divided by w was moved to the other side, and I just divided all through by 2 to end up with f of w, right? And then when you simplify this, you're gonna get this. I just took the lowest common denominator and then lowest common multiple rather, and then use that to simplify it into a single expression. Now this is essentially f of x, because whether you use f of w, f of t, the functions still have the same structure, right? The same look. So to get my f of x, I just simply replace w with x, and that's it. So that's how you arrive at this final solution for this question. Please, if you guys have any question about any part of this solution, you can drop it in the comments, and I would be glad to answer your question. Again, anyone that wants this material, I would always make my materials available on request. Thank you so much. Have a good day.